on!
In my lifetime, nothing has ever felt as futuristic as virtual reality did in the 90s.
That was wicked!
And I don't think anything ever will.
This is virtual reality.
You gotta try this thing.
In movies, books, and TV shows, it was presented as completely realistic, totally transporting you into another world, with the only side effect being potentially lawnmower manning you into a super genius.
I am God here.
I think the reason it existed in my imagination that way is because I couldn't try it or even really see any real-life footage of it. There was no YouTube, you couldn't look up reaction videos or see like a press conference of some real-life product being announced. I knew it existed in some theme parks or like fancy malls or giant arcades, but those weren't accessible to me. So it just took on a life of its own in my imagination. Until one day, I remember opening up a video game magazine and holy Sega was making a virtual reality headset for the Genesis, a system I already owned. The sci-fi future from movies and TV was about to be a real thing. It would be like if Jurassic Park toys came out with a real-life dinosaur, or if Star Wars action figures came with a real working lightsaber. They were gonna sell this thing for $200. It was the sci-fi future for movies and TV shows as a toy I could actually ask for Christmas. This is the story of Sega VR, the technological breakthrough that changed the world by putting you inside the game. Almost.
Say it! Say it!
Sega! In 1993, Sega was at the top of their game. They had the coolest commercials. They had Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic 2 handles stubborn stains. Embarrassing bald spots, no problem. It even slices and dices, makes thousands of julienne fries. But wait, you can play it too.
They had the version of Mortal Kombat with the blood in it. They were putting video games on CDs.
Shoot the tubes, dog meat!
At the time, my family had one computer, and it was connected to the internet almost. We had a service called Prodigy, which was kind of like a dial-up thing that was like an off-brand AOL. And it connected you to what we called the information superhighway, which, to my understanding, was located in cyberspace. And there was only one way that you could actually visit cyberspace, and that was to have a virtual reality headset. I imagined hacking into remote computers by putting on VR goggles and like sneaking in through a window in the back that was left open because the computers in cyberspace were like buildings, I think. This is what I'm talking about with virtual reality. No one knew. I didn't know what it was. It could have been anything. There was one time in my childhood that I got physically close to virtual reality. I was on a field trip to New York City, and we stopped at a fancy mall for lunch. We had like 20 minutes in the food court, and next to the food court, they had a virtuality system set up. In the 90s, these were like the only way that a normal person could potentially experience virtual reality. They were either like a stand-up pod with a ring around it, and you could kind of walk around and zap things, or there were like seated ones where you put the goggles on and you could like pilot a vehicle. The one I saw was some kind of vehicle thing, and you could see people actually doing it. It cost, I think, $5 for 5 minutes. Now we had 20 minutes for lunch. I could see the line was like at least 10 people long. So mathematically, there was no way I was gonna get to try it, but still, I skipped lunch, got in the line, and watched people watch their mouths move, watched them be in awe as they went into virtual reality, watched them take the headsets off and get like stumbly and whooshy.
Brilliant. Just feel like you're in another world.
It seemed incredible, and I wanted to see what was happening inside there. In the end, I didn't get a turn because there wasn't enough time, but I didn't regret it. So that was the environment in 1993 when Sega announced a virtual reality headset for the Genesis. A kid would skip lunch to wait in line in order to not get to try virtual reality and still have no regrets because they got close enough to see other people do it. So the virtuality I saw at the mall cost $5 for 5 minutes. The Sega VR was set to be priced at $200. That meant owning a Sega VR would cost roughly the same as trying virtuality at that mall 40 times. And this is the type of math I began doing immediately after hearing about the Sega VR to justify it to anyone who would listen. The way I heard about Sega VR was through a magazine. And the way the magazine heard about Sega VR was through a 1993 Consumer Electronics show.
But check out this little demonstration of VR.
Which is a trade show where retailers can come and be exposed to all the new technology coming out in that year and decide what products they want to stock in their stores. At Sega's presentation at this particular CES,
I put it on and suddenly, I'm deep in a future world of fast-paced action.
it seemed as though they had shrunk the essence of a $60,000 virtuality arcade machine into a $200 Sega Genesis accessory. It was a true game changer. Almost.
You're totally immersed in another world.
The key to the Sega VR comes down to a sensor they licensed from a startup called Ono Sendai. It could measure yaw, which is left and right, and pitch, which is up and down.
It's everywhere you turn. The game completely surrounds you. You move, it moves all around you. Incredible.
For under $1 per unit. When you moved your head, the sensor sent that data to the Sega Genesis and updated the in-game camera to match where the player was looking. Almost.
One word. Incredible.
So, with the Sega VR, what happened? Nothing. After that one announcement, there was never another official word from Sega on the Sega VR. Nothing else ever happened. It was just quietly canceled. Sega claimed that the main issue was that it was too realistic, that kids would get lost in a virtual world and run into a wall or fall over and get hurt, and they didn't want to hurt the children, so they held back their headset for being too good. The truth is, it was laggy. And when you move your head and your vision doesn't match up with what your brain expects it to see from moving its head, your body assumes you've been poisoned and makes you feel nauseous. That's what motion sickness is. In 2020, the Video Game History Foundation was able to uncover the full source code to one of the intended launch games for Sega VR called Nuclear Rush. Through that, they were able to find out exactly what the specs for Sega VR would have been.
So one of the first things you'll notice here is that the Sega VR didn't track roll. So when I move my head like such, it isn't tracked, but it does track plus or minus 30 degrees pitch and a full 360 degrees yaw, so I could spin all the way around in my chair there.
First of all, the frame rate would have been capped at 15 frames per second per eye. To put that in perspective, the minimum frame rate on a modern VR headset like the Meta Quest is 72 frames per second. Anything less than that is considered barfy. So this thing would have made people sick.
Part of the problem was it only ran at 15 hertz, which frankly kind of hurts.
On top of that, it had a resolution of 320 by 200 pixels, which would look something like this.
Virtual reality is probably one of the most talked about products today. And what we're trying to do is bring virtual reality experience to the consumer with a product that hooks to the Genesis for a few $100. Nobody else has done anything like this.
In an episode of the Retro Gamer podcast, former CEO of Sega of America, Tom Kalinske, explained it like this. One of the problems was almost everybody got sick. It caused severe motion sickness. Other people got severe headaches. So imagine this. It's Christmas morning, 1994. A wave of children, all barfing into their newly opened Sega VR headsets.
I thought I'd have to wait till I was old, like 30, to get VR at home.
This has been the story of the Sega VR, the groundbreaking technology that jump-started the virtual reality revolution in the 1990s, bringing it from the realm of science fiction to living rooms everywhere. Almost.
Oh, come on.